Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Neil Helm. And there's such a good write-up in the newsletter this week about Neil, and he's done so many things that I'm just going to have to, I can't remember all this, so I'm going to share it with you. It says, Neil's life changed profoundly when at the age of 5 he drowned in a hot spring in central Montana, resulting in a dramatic near-death experience. He subsequently became a conference speaker, a journal article writer, and a researcher on near-death experiences. Neil enjoyed a long career in space and advanced communications research in corporate, government, and academic entities for over 40 years. From 1990 to 2008, he directed a space research center at the School of Engineering and Applied Science at George Washington University. For his humanitarian efforts that included seminal research and development of the satellite-based Global Disaster Communication System and Network and the Global Search and Rescue System and Network, both now operational today, global systems credited with saving many thousands of lives every year. He was nominated in 1995. As if that's not enough, he goes on for another paragraph. As scholar in residence, the goal was to conduct research, assist faculty and students with their research, and support students as they complete their culminating projects. Neil is also keenly interested in the field of transpersonal psychology. And so when he was about late 70s, Neil gets a doctorate in transpersonal psychology, which, believe me, is no easy feat, even for a 25-year-old. His dissertation was titled, The Effects of Near-Death Experiences on Religion and Spiritual Beliefs. He likes to teach transpersonal approaches in his dynamic field of psychology. So I would invite this 86-year-old guy who's going on 16 to come on up, Dr. Neil.
Thank you, Bruce. A gin and tonic? No. Thank you. This first. Thank you. I enjoy always coming in and sharing with you guys in this beautiful fellowship. It's just one of the things in life and here in Virginia Beach that I really enjoy. I'm talking today about AI, artificial intelligence, and I don't know, I don't see Dr. Pfeiffer here, but Professor Pfeiffer talked here about 3 weeks ago and he did an outstanding, excellent approach to how some of the applications, music and poetry, can be really assisted by artificial intelligence. I'm going to be more philosophical as I am in nature when I look at this, and when I look at AI. First, let's define what it is. Artificial intelligence. So that is to say, everything that is not in your brain, but acts like your brain. So machines, especially computers, primarily computers, that we can design to mimic more and more of our actual mental capabilities, our cognition. And the brain still operates in the billions of synapses, they're called, every second. So AI still has a lot to catch up on. It isn't there yet. But it's making some incredible breakthroughs. Excuse me, a number of my friends who know I'm talking about this talked to me this week, and we commiserated a little bit. But I wanted to at least look at how artificial intelligence worked in this particular election. What we saw And you know, I have to just give a lot of credit to the Republican Party and to the Republican Congressional Committee and to now soon-to-be President Trump's team, that they did, they really did an outstanding job of changing the perspective. Only 2 years ago, after the Roe versus Wade decision by the Supreme Court, he had a 31%, something like that, approval rating, and of course he won the election. So I looked at what are some of the things that affected it, and the primary one that I found that was really assisted by AI is what we now find these computer systems are ganged into big server farms. And I say ganged, they're now hundreds and hundreds of computers that are all tied together and are super cooled so that they can operate as 100 computers, as nearly as then operating like 1,000 computers. So that really to pull them together and to cool them down gives these server farms. So we don't have to have all of that computing in our desktop or in our pocket. We go online because the fiber optics are still very, very high in capacity. We can go to these server farms and pick up information, or they can send it to us. And what I found this week, in the last 6 weeks especially, but it started before that, there was a tremendous increase in information, primarily disinformation, that was sent to everyone in social media, especially. And I don't, you know, I don't, you know, someone came along and said, you know, we sent you a happy birthday on your birthday on Facebook. And I said, well, I haven't looked at Facebook this year. And I don't know anything about X or any of those TikTok. I don't do any of that. So I didn't see all of that, but a lot of my friends did. But my email doubled in the last 6 weeks. Just my email alone doubled, more than doubled. So we got this information again and again and again and again and again and again, which began to disorient people to some extent and from what is actually the truth. And it worked. It worked. So these big gangs of computers were able to, and some of them now, like in Prince William County in Virginia, there are now 5 server farms. Each server farm takes up the energy of 50,000 homes. A single server farm takes up the energy of 50,000 homes because it has to be super cooled. And there's these huge, if you go close to them, they won't let you get too close. But even from a distance, you can hear these big coolers, refrigerators, just working away, and the pumps to pump the liquid cooling to keep these computers cool. So that's, and we're seeing in AI, it's certainly not a synergy. And let's go back and say, look at what these big breakthroughs that they want AI to be. We go back, for example, to the iron and steel. You had to have steel, Bessemer, to make the boilers that control the steam for steam engines, and then the hard track. Iron itself was too soft and brittle to make rails, and were too soft to hold the boilers for the pressure to drive a piston to turn a big wheel and to produce energy. So you needed steel. So that breakthrough, probably more than any else, changed Western civilization. So we've had some changes have been more positive and some have been more disruptive over the years. And now, 30 years ago, and I was very close to this, we had the internet. And the internet was a synergy. Now, a synergy is when the parts come together, and you should always use the word among, synergy among things. So we had computing, we had communications, fiber optics and satellites, we had storage, we had in the batteries, and we had an increase in graphics. We had all of these come together in the internet, and it was very, very positive. The internet, especially in the lesser developed parts of the world, the internet turned it around. So I'm not seeing that in artificial intelligence, although they want to take a lot of credit for it. What we're seeing all over is every time a new little medical breakthrough or something like that, they're saying it's artificial intelligence, and they want to make it look very, very positive. And the big corporations are setting it up that way. And then, how do we show it? Well, everybody likes dogs, so we'll make a robot dog. Everybody likes puppies and dogs. So we'll make a dog, and we'll make the dog look like a robot, and we'll put our computers in it. But you also need sensors, but which are there. Yesterday, I saw the Secret Service show a thing of Mar-a-Lago security, and they had this dog, this artificial dog, run across the grass. You can put sensors to hear better, to see better, to smell better, to touch better, to taste better. You can put all those sensors in a box on wheels. You don't need a dog. I mean, you can roll the thing across with a little motor, but they're using a dog because people like dogs. And they want AI to be very positive. They want you to, every time you hear AI, they want you to think very positive. But AI, in fact, has a very destructive part to it. Extremely destructive. As positive as it can be, it has very disturbing, destructive parts to it. For example, I talked about the power and the energy that are needed for these server farms. So all at once we're seeing offshore wind. We're seeing a new increase in interest in atomic energy. We're seeing a new interest in little atomic power plants, Microsoft. And then Microsoft wants to rehabilitate 3 Mile Island at $6 billion because energy is getting so much. By the way, our Dominion is a big part of that. Our bills are going up. All of us, we're paying for those farms in our bills because Dominion is giving them so much energy. But they want to buy the farm, the wind farm. Oh, it's all good, but it's just to know that the energy requirements now are increasing at nearly 50% a year. Growth, that's normally 2-3%. The growth desire of energy, so that we're going to turn on the fossil fuels again. We're going to get rid of any kinds of restrictions. We're going to really try to boost the energy ability of this country to power these server farms and to power AI. And let's look a little bit at the macro, the big thing. So all this energy, by the way, requires, in addition to energy, requires a lot of water. They get their water out of the Chesapeake and then cool it and put it back. So more and more as temperatures and climate get warmer, it takes much more energy out of the air. So more and more we're going to see climate change, whether you like it or not. And it's going to be especially felt along the equators and along the Sahel in Africa, for example. Those areas are now getting closer and closer. I lived in Saudi Arabia for a number of years. Those areas are going to get so warm that they're not going to be able to sustain human life. So the immigrations, we talk about having immigration problems. The immigration problems of the future are going to be enormous because the people cannot live, will not be able to live in these warmer and warmer and warmer areas. First you won't be able to work, but then you won't be able to live. And we're seeing that to some extent already in Arizona, southern Arizona, Phoenix, in those areas. And people simply can't go out and work when 100 days this year was over 100 degrees. And that's going to happen. So we're going to see, in the big macro sense, this desire for energy, for all this information, and all this computing is going to take more oxygen and more energy. And then and the interesting thing about it is the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and it's documented. Just again, recently, last couple of years, the amount of wealth distribution to the wealthiest of these companies, big corporations that want this energy and want these servers, the Microsofts and Alphabets and these big companies, they, just in the last year or two, a percent or two more of the great wealth, and now the top 1% in America owns 27% of all goods and services. 1% owns 27, 2% own nearly 50%. And the bottom 500% own 6%. And the trend, interestingly enough, is not from the wealthy becoming less wealthy and giving it. So who has the money? If the poor certainly don't have it, they just don't even have it to give away. So where is the wealth coming from that's going up to the very wealthy? It comes from the middle class. But they won't tell you that. They got to get it from somewhere. Statistically, this is not Neil, this is statistics. The wealthy are getting wealthier, more billionaires every day, more multimillionaires every day. Where is this wealth coming from? It's got to come from somewhere. It comes from what is called the middle class. So you, in fact, all of us in this group, by and large, are all paying for that wealthier group to get wealthier and wealthier. And as they get wealthy, and I've studied all 12 civilizations, back when I was with the Jesuits years ago in Georgetown, every civilization has a start and a very great growth, and then it has a golden age, and then it has an age of decline, and then it disappears. Every one of the civilizations, every single one, went through the same cycle. And Western civilization is now in the golden age, getting close to decline. By the way, every civilization, every one of them ended up being overturned by people who could throw stones. The civilizations built their armies bigger and bigger and bigger, and then finally the armies turned against the last few. When it gets below 5%, so now the top 10%, by the way, own about 90%. So when it gets to 95, decline will happen, chaos will happen, and it'll end up, the winners will be able to, who can throw the stone the best. That's the big macro long-term sense. Most of us will be long gone before that ever happens. Okay. Sorry to be so negative, but that's what we're looking at in the macro sense of where this is going. Let's look at the micro part of it. The micro part, the little part of it, is that service to all of us. Unless you have a computer, and our computer, really computer literate, you can't, you're getting, so you can't really call any of these corporations anymore. They never give you a phone number. And they give you in this chat box thing, and they'll give it to you in any voice you'd like to hear. If you want to hear Princess Di's voice or any voice you like, they can talk to you in that voice. And you call them and they'll say, well, here are 8 options, push 1. And if you don't happen to be one of those 8 options, then they say, well, here are another 8 options, push 2. But if it isn't what you're looking at really trying to solve, you're in trouble. Go to try to find a phone number now. I think, by the way, there's not even one here of the fellowship anymore on their website. You go to the websites, it's just fewer and fewer and fewer phones. So you've got it, so the older and the less educated and the people who don't have good computers and aren't getting computer literate like me are just being left out because I go and they give me a 13-letter thing that I've got ups and downs and letters and capitals and all of that thing. And at 86, I can't do that very well. I'll make a mistake out of 13, and so I have to start again. So that's that in the micro sense. 2, it's really interesting, movies, movie stars. And Dr. Pfeiffer talked about the graphics. By the way, the second biggest thing to computing is graphics. Graphics design is really going to take off. what they can do now in movies is they'll invite your Netflix, and this, by the way, Netflix kind of people are going to be the ones that really profit from this. They will invite in the actor for 2 days, and the actor will smile and sit this way and sit in a car and do this and that and look up and down. And for 2 days, they'll take graphic photographs. From then on, the rest of that actor's life, he or she never has to show up again. They can age him, they can change him, they can put him in cars, they can make him look dead, they can do everything to him. 2 days, you've developed an entire actor, and they never have to work again. They never have to pay him again. Because they've got every shot now, the graphics people can take every shot from those 2 days and build movies, can build them shooting, can build them doing all these things, and just do the graphics part of it. And we see that in music, we see it in, so the computers are getting so good, they know privacy is the other part of it. By the way, if you think that they don't know what you're doing, I know for a fact, because I've talked to the people who run at least one, but there are a lot of them, big supercomputers in New York City. They're tied to hedge funds that know every day, pretty much to the minute, when you get up, what you eat, what you dress, where you go, why you go there, what decisions you make, who you meet with, what you eat for lunch, what you're going to eat for dinner. They know that down to the minute, right now. It doesn't even need any more technology. They know exactly which, and then if you're getting to the point where you might buy a stock or something, they know exactly where you're thinking of companies and what you're going to buy. And so they get there before you. And the privacy, there's just absolute, we're 1984, Orwell. I mean, the cameras, but it doesn't even have to be the cameras, because if you've made so many transactions with a credit card, and your media that you participate in has been saved and analyzed and integrated, so they know everything about you all the time, pretty much. But that's only going to get worse, because they're going to get better and better and better at even anticipating what you're going to do. And so the people who want to do things before you do them are going to be out ahead of you, just to know that's coming. The other disruptive thing of all of this is that when I get to the thing of who normally we talk to a person on a phone, those jobs are going to go. There's going to be a lot more unemployment. So we're going to have to find out jobs, because this disruptive technology, like the movie stars, and all of us are probably going to go away. They're going to build all these movies, and they can do the chase scenes, they can do all these things that people enjoy, build it all from graphics. And so there's the disruptiveness in employment is going to be dramatic. Again, I won't be around, but you younger people are going to be around to see it. There's going to be many fewer jobs, because if you think of any job that a computer can possibly do, if something that you do it again and again and again, and you use a computer doing it, well, just know a computer that gets 1,000 times more powerful and faster. Can that computer do what you're doing right now? Can do in the future what you're doing now? If you sort of think, yeah, computer can talk on the phone and computer can do all these things, then you better look a little bit at the potential of what jobs, cybersecurity, graphic design are going to be. There's a whole bunch of new vocations that are going to be very, very important. And a lot of jobs are going to fall by the wayside, because this technology is a disruptive technology. It's going to put people out of work, big time. But they're not going to, big corporations that fire people, it's not their fault. It's the dog. It's the dog's fault that we fire whole groups. I was just talking to a linguist in the United Nations. The technology is out now, by the way, in 100 languages. In 100 languages, I can wear a little thing about the size of a pack of cigarettes, and I can talk into it in English, In 100 languages, it translates simultaneously what I'm saying. So when you travel around the world, now, instead of having to learn a language or having to try to struggle, you just buy that little application, little pack, and you put it on, you have a little microphone, and you say, good morning. It says, good knob, good morgen, or parlez-vous français, whatever you want to say in whatever language, on 100 languages. It's all, that technology is already there. The market isn't ready for it. The technologies are there. But what this friend of mine, who's a translator up in the United Nations, she's saying, we are all going to be fired. Basically all, there'll be a few supervisors around. But they can now make machines to translate in languages faster than the simultaneous translators who do it now. And so all those people who speak multi-languages and who make a living, tour guides and others, they're all going to have to look for new employment because computers can do it so much, and not a computer, a little app can do it so much better. So there's good news, though. If this is corralled correctly, and if the companies are not allowed, the big corporations aren't allowed to take advantage of us, we don't know. It looks like the rules and restrictions, and they say, on big corporations. And I was just, we have, the world is, the country is so, we're going so slow because of all the regulations. And I go back and look at where we were with the lack of regulations. And I go back to, and this will be my last example of this. After the Second World War, we were so busy with the war and the corporations and so what is one of the America's most penultimate American company? General Electric. The housewife and all those modern refrigerators and dishwashers and all that, and General Electric. Where progress is our most important product, if you remember the GE hour, most of you are too young. They had a guy by the name of, actor by the name of Ronald Reagan, who would come on and say that at the end, where progress is our most important product. General Electric. Well, now we find out that their plant, we found out early, that their plant in upstate New York, which made the oil for the power transformers that we see on these posts, every block has one. It's an oil inside, but it's also filled with PCBs, which are bad chemicals. It kills everything. That General Electric plant, in 30 years, from 1947 to 1977, so polluted the Hudson River that nothing lived, and still, basically nothing lives in the beautiful Hudson River, one of America's greatest waterways. Killed everything along the banks. They dumped millions of pounds of PCBs into the Hudson River because there was no regulation after the war. And the big corporations could get away with it. Take out one of the biggest American waterways in 30 years, one corporation, one American corporation. If you, by the way, think that these corporations have your best interests, they tell you a lot of stuff. We're here for you. But you go into their boardrooms and the door locks. It's the bottom line. The bottom line. And that's capitalism. That's capitalism, the bottom line. If we can make more profit, that's the only thing that's important. The bottom line. Okay. The world is not over because we still love each other. And we celebrate that love getting together in groups like this. And we do things for each other. And we serve each other. And that's so, this is such a serving group. By the way, I love this group. I really do. I love you so much. The things that you do, the service, that Larry's and Bruce's, they don't get paid for this. That's their service that they do to this fellowship in this community. It's just beautiful. It's wonderful. And so I pray for the new administration. I pray for the new president. I really do. I really do. I want all of us to be successful because I love you all. And in addition to the love, I understand that concept of universal love, that you are one, and you're all me, and I'm all you. And it's really hard for me not to love you if I don't love myself, and I've got a pretty good ego. So I do love you, and it's hard to, when perhaps you're not feeling well, and you're not feeling so good about yourself, and you're not feeling like you're doing so well, but it's certainly perhaps can't be you. It must be somebody else who doesn't look maybe like you, or eat the same food, or wear the same clothes, talk the same language. The others is the problem. But we have to go back to the point we are all one. We are all one. We love each other. We are one. And that's so good. And the last thing that we do in this group, it turns me on. I walk out of this group every time we end with the point that we have unity with all. I breathe with you. I step with you. Every step I take, we form a circle. Every breath, every step I do with you, because I am with you. I love you. I'm a part of you. I want to be a part of you. I want us all to be healthier and happier and succeed and come back and celebrate getting together here at the fellowship. Thank you.